Are you sure you've always made your own decisions? Think about it. That career path you followed. The opinion you changed without knowing why. That purchase you swore was spontaneous. Was it really your idea? Or was it planted? A suggestion wrapped in familiarity. A subtle nudge disguised as choice. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Maybe your choices weren't yours at all. Just influence in disguise. We live in a world where control is rarely taken by force. It's earned through subtlety, through psychological finesse, through the art of making others believe they chose what was never truly theirs. And if you're not the one doing the influencing, you are being influenced. If you're not holding the strings, you're the one being pulled. That's not an accusation, it's a pattern. And the most dangerous part? The more confident you are in your autonomy, the easier you are to manipulate. And if that unsettles you, it should. Because it means the game is already being played, and you're already on the board. So the question is, will you keep being a piece, or will you start moving them? Real power doesn't shout, it doesn't command, and it never asks for permission. It whispers. It slips into conversations as suggestion. It enters the mind as a question, never a directive. The highest form of power? Making people do what you want, while thinking it was their idea. This is the anatomy of invisible power. You don't force action. You induce emotion, because action rarely follows logic. It follows feeling, fear, desire, envy, pride. Trigger the right emotion, and you can move a person without touching them, without raising your voice, without ever revealing your hand. True manipulators understand this. They don't force, they frame, then they wait. They craft atmospheres where decisions feel natural, but they're anything but. And the genius of it? It leaves no fingerprints. That's why real influence often goes unnoticed. Not because it's weak, but because it's surgical. Manipulation is not coercion. It's architecture. Not a strike, but a structure built inside someone's mind. So how do real strategists pull this off? Moving people without ever looking like they're pushing. True influence doesn't start with force. It starts with selection. Don't try to manipulate everyone. It's inefficient and unnecessary. Focus on those still uncertain. People looking for direction but afraid to admit it. These people don't need commands. They need nudges. Implant the idea subtly, through suggestion, framing, and questions that guide attention. Make them think they arrived. Because people resist control, but they defend what they believe is their own decision. That's the second principle. Ownership neutralizes resistance. If they think it's their idea, they will protect it, promote it, and persuade others for you. But influence isn't just about individuals. If you want to maintain control, you must preempt organization. A unified resistance is dangerous. So what do? You fragment it, introduce subtle doubt, shift loyalties, encourage quiet rivalries. When people are divided, they focus on each other, not on you. This is strategic influence, not by force, not by persuasion, but by architecture. But techniques mean nothing if you don't understand the real engine of human behavior, emotion. If logic shaped behavior, the world would be rational. But it's not, because humans are not moved by data. They are moved by emotion, fear, desire, pride, insecurity. These are not distractions. They are the engine beneath every decision. You can present the most well-reasoned argument. You can offer facts, proof, even evidence of benefit. But unless you activate emotion, you're whispering into a void. Why? Because people don't act when they understand. Understanding moves the mind, but emotion moves the body. Want loyalty? Evoke belonging. Want urgency? Evoke fear of loss. Want action? Attach your idea to their personal ambition. This isn't manipulation, it's behavioral reality. Every great movement, revolution, or campaign in history succeeded, not because it made perfect sense, but because it stirred something primal. So stop trying to convince, stop trying to debate. Instead, craft emotional states. Make them feel the tension. Make them feel the hope. Make them feel what you need them to believe. But there's a deeper level of influence, where the idea isn't just accepted, it's absorbed into identity. People change their opinions every day, but ask them to change who they believe they are. And you'll meet resistance that no argument can penetrate. Because identity isn't just a label, it's a self-protective structure. And the moment a belief becomes part of that structure, it stops being negotiable. That's why ordinary persuasion fails. It tries to convince the mind, while ignoring the ego. But here's the secret. If you want someone to guard your idea, don't ask them to believe it. Make them become it. Wrap the belief inside something they already value. Their sense of morality, culture, intelligence, or uniqueness. Don't just sell an idea. Sell who they are if they adopt it. Once the idea becomes who they are, they'll protect it like they're protecting themselves, not out of loyalty to you, but to themselves. They won't just repeat it. They'll recruit others to believe it. They'll protect it against contradiction, not because they were told to, but because abandoning it would feel like abandoning who they are. But how do you install an idea so deeply that it becomes part of who they are, without ever saying it directly? Once you've framed the idea and anchored it to identity, the next step is embedding it, quietly, consistently, irrevocably. There are 3 tools. They don't scream. They don't announce themselves, but they shape belief from within. First, exposure. The human mind resists the unfamiliar, but show something often enough, and resistance fades. Introduce the idea subtly, not as a confrontation, but as a presence that grows. Second, repetition. Not through copy-paste redundancy, but through strategic variation. Present the same message from different angles, in different contexts, at different times. Because what's repeated becomes familiar, and what's familiar becomes true. That's why familiar ideas feel true, even when they're not. People trust what flows easily in their minds, not because it's logical, but because it feels known. Third, emotion. Ideas linked to strong emotions. Fear, hope, pride. Don't just land, they root. Because emotion bypasses analysis. It drives memory, prioritizes attention, and accelerates belief. So don't just tell them the idea. Make them feel what life looks like with it, and what it costs them without it. But even if you shape individuals perfectly, there's still one force that can bring down your entire system: unified resistance. Even the most refined influence collapses when the opposition unites. You can program individuals, you can steer their behavior, reshape their beliefs. But if they organize around a common enemy, you lose control. History proves this. Revolutions don't start with disagreement. They start with alignment. Not everyone has to be angry. They just have to be angry together. So what's the countermeasure? Fragmentation. Don't fight them head on. You don't need to destroy unity. You only need to disrupt it. plant subtle doubt, encourage quiet competition, highlight their differences, amplify their egos, create invisible lines of mistrust, especially among leaders. The moment they begin to compete for status, your job is done. You don't need to crush unity, just crack it, and it'll collapse itself. This is organizational judo. You don't oppose force. You redirect it inward, keep them busy with each other, so they forget about you, and they'll spend more time managing each other's ambition than challenging your authority. And now we reach the part no one talks about: the psychological cost of playing this game too well. There's a price to playing with minds, and it's not always paid by the manipulated. It's paid by you. Because once you learn how to implant ideas, once you see how easily people can be moved, you begin to see strings everywhere. You no longer hear what people say. You hear what drives them. You question every compliment, every agreement, every connection. Is it real? Or is it a reflection of your influence? You gain precision, but lose innocence, the same tools that allow you to bend others. Begin to distort your view of them. They're no longer people, just moving parts in your strategy. And soon, trust feels naive. Authenticity feels scripted. Intimacy becomes analysis. Because control changes not only how others respond to you, it changes how you perceive the world. The paradox? The deeper you go into mastery, the further you drift from humanity. The game rewards detachment, but it punishes connection. And that's the cost no one tells you about. So you've mastered the tools, you've pulled the strings. Now there's only one question left. Every master manipulator believes one thing: that they are the exception, that they can pull the strings without ever becoming tangled in them, that they can stay one move ahead forever. That control will protect them from ever being controlled. But history tells a different story. The more refined your influence, the more predictable you become to those who study you. And sooner or later, someone appears. Quieter, colder, better at playing your own game. You thought you were above it. You thought you were safe. But in trying to dominate others, you taught them how to dominate you. And here's the paradox. To gain total control, you must surrender something precious: your innocence, your capacity to trust, your sense of connection to anything that isn't calculated. So now you must decide. Yes, the tools work. Yes, the strategies are real. But are you ready to live in a world where every interaction is a tactic, where even love becomes a move? Because once you cross that line, you can't return to not knowing. So the final question isn't, can you manipulate? It's this: are you still willing to pull the strings, knowing the cost?